So I'm making this video because this is one of the more common mistakes or issues that I see when you guys send me your tracks for feedback or for mixing help. Hey guys, this is Shane here from Echo Soundworks. In this video, we're gonna be talking about 808s and whether or not you should be using sidechain compression to help get your kick and the 808 to sit and fit together in your mix. So I would say that most of the time, you don't want to have a noticeable pumping effect in terms of the reduction of volume in your 808 every time your kick hits. Now, if you're working on like a house track or something that's 4-on-the-4 where you want that kind of suction, that feeling where like every time the kick hits, the mix sucks out, that's fine, that makes sense. In fact, I have a video on the channel about this, and I don't know if I was as clear as I should have been in that video, that if you're doing more groove-based music, a better alternative to sidechain compression and getting the volume reduction would be to hone in and focus on specific frequencies, right? So you could use a compressor that allows you to filter certain frequencies in the sidechain. Logic X has that option in the Platinum algorithm. You could use a multi-band compressor, or you could use a dynamic equalizer. So in this video, I'm gonna show you how you can use a dynamic equalizer to get a kick and an 808 to fit together without losing the presence of the low end. All right, so before we get started, if you guys are looking for some really high quality 808 presets for Serum and some samples, you can download a free pack we made recently. Link is in the description. Completely free, 25 Serum presets and 20 wave samples, all tuned to C. So you can drag and drop them into your favorite sampler of choice. You don't have to pitch them up or down to get them to fit. So that being said, let's dive into Logic now and start talking about the anatomy of an 808 sample. So the 808, when we hear this sound in 2019, we think 808. Well, you guys might have heard of a really famous, one of the most influential drum machines of all time, the Roland TR-808. That sound that I just played for you isn't on an actual 808, like a TR-808. The Roland TR-808, it had a kick drum that had a good bit of tone to it. It had a snappy kind of transient, and it had a little bit of tone. And what producers would do is they would actually sample out that kick and put it on another sampler that would allow you to pitch it up and down, because the original Roland TR-808, you couldn't actually pitch it up and down and play playable notes, right? It was just a tonal kick. And so that's kind of how that whole thing started, and that's why they were, kind of ubiquitously called an 808. And since then, they've evolved. So most 808 samples that you guys are going to download, whether it's from the free download link that I'm including in the description in this video, or whether it's from like a sample pack or Splice or whatever, most of them are going to have, when they're called an 808, they're going to have a kick section or a transient or a tick. What that means is that there's like a baby kick. The reason I'm calling it a baby kick is it usually isn't as full-bodied as a pure kick sample in the actual 808 sample. So an 808 is simple. It is literally just a kick or a tick and then a subtone. And the subtone is usually processed with distortion or saturation, right? So if we check out this 808 sample again, and we take a look right here, and we take a listen actually, hear a little bit of a kick, right? If I play it from within the sample, right, we don't hear that kick at first, right? So let's zoom in on the kick, on the transient, and you'll see exactly what I mean. So this will show you what's going on perfectly. So this right here represents just the sine wave that is the sub, right? And this specific sine wave isn't a pure sine wave. It's been processed. It has some saturation and some distortion. If we go over here to the first part of the kick, you can see that there's these waveforms really close together. That's the tick, right? So if we loop just this first section, we'll just hear this kind of click. Hear that? That just sounds like a kick playing really fast. So that's the kick element of the 808. Kick plus a sub that's processed equals an 808. All right, so here we have an 808 sample with an actual kick sample. So there are instances where obviously you're going to have a 808 sample that has a kick in it, and that is where you might want to reach for that sidechain compressor, because you're trying to duck the volume of that kick, because now you have to manage two kicks together. So in this example, you can see that this kick of the 808 starts a little bit after this, and that's by design. But you can see here that we have that kick. So instead of reaching for the the sidechain compressor, try removing the kick sound with just cutting it out of the sample, and it's pretty easy to find. Right, that's pretty much the kick. Might be able to take out one more, and then that's basically the start of your sub. So if we loop this, right, we're hearing the sub. and there's not, a tick or a kick there. So now blending these just becomes a matter of frequency control, not actually trying to blend two kicks together. And that's where the dynamic equalization comes into play. So let's delete that sample and bring in our Serum preset that I mentioned before. Again, these are completely free. If you guys want them, you can click the download link in the description. So on most of the presets that's included in 808 Day V2, we have a no kick macro. So if you want to remove the kick, you just turn that up, and that's obviously helpful when you have a established kick in your beat or your track. So now it just becomes a matter of frequency and getting them to fit together, and that's where we start to use that dynamic equalizer. So if you guys don't know what a dynamic EQ is, you can think of dynamic EQ kind of along the same lines as a multiband compressor. What we want to do is we want to have a certain frequency dip when the kick hits, right? So that's why it's called dynamic. It's not static. A static EQ would be like me loading up Logic stock EQ, taking this curve down, for instance, from like 2K to 5K on my 808, and then every time the 808 plays for the entirety that it is being played, there's going to be a reduction in these frequencies. That's a static EQ. Whereas a dynamic EQ or a multiband compressor that's being sidechain triggered, that frequency will dip every time basically the sidechain trigger tells it to, right? So it's dynamic. So we're going to set that up right now using FabFilter Pro Q3. So I'm going to be using FabFilter Pro Q3 for this. There's a lot of other tools out there. You can use a multi-pressor, a multi-band compressor. There's a lot of different things, or dynamic equalizer, right? So here I have FabFilter Pro Q3 on both the kick and the 808. Now here's the instance of the Pro Q3 on the kick. It's not doing anything. I have it on there because Pro Q3 can do this real cool thing with your metering, where if we hover over this, we can see the stuff in the red, right? The red meter is the kick, and the kind of whitish grayed out spectrum is what's going on the 808. So what I can do is I can hover over this and I can see where they share frequencies. So then all I do is I create a node. It could be a bell. We're going to use a bell curve for this. And I'll set this up from scratch, actually, so you guys can see how to do it from scratch if you're using FabFilter Pro Q3. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to So there's my kick. Here's this. So there's a lot of information that's kind of being shared right in here, right? So I'm going to take this down. You can see that right there. So with the static EQ, I'd just be removing this frequency, every time the 808 hits for the whole duration of the 808. That's taking out a lot of the presence, a lot of the oomph of the 808. So I don't want that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to right click and select Make Dynamic. Pull this up here, go down to the knob, grab this little kind of fader here. And now, right now, every time the 808 hits, because it's self-triggering, you'll see that volume reduction or that frequency reduction, right? But what I want to do is I want it to be triggered by my kick. So in Logic and in FabFilter Pro Q3, what I'm going to do is I'm going to, instead of have it be on auto, I'm going to, right here, select external sidechain. Now I need to go to my sidechain and trigger the kick. So now every time the kick hits, we're going to get a reduction in this frequency. Which is going to make the kick and the 808 fit together a lot better. And I can control the amount with this slider here. Right, that's way too extreme. I'm just showing you so you can hear. All right, so that sounds pretty good. Let's take a listen to it with the music. All right, guys, that's going to sum up the video. If you have any questions or comments, post those below, and we'll try to get back to you as soon as we can. And like I mentioned at the beginning of the video, go download 808 Day V2. It comes with 25 Serum presets, 20 wave file 808s. They're tuned to C, so they are ready to go in your favorite sampler. Go download those. Links down there in the description. If you guys haven't subscribed to the channel, definitely do that. You guys are going to stay up to date with all the content, all the tutorials we're releasing. And if you do subscribe, smash that notification bell so you get an update when we release new stuff. All right, guys, thank you for watching. I'll see you next time.